from KGW.com. Rapper Ice Cube's tour bus catches fire in downtown Portland. Investigation underway. Now, you may be saying, Tim, that's sad to hear for Ice Cube. The rumor is the fire was started by people who thought they were firebombing ICE.
Which, that is hilarious. It's terrible for the owner of the... It's awful for the owner of the bus, because I assume that Ice Cube doesn't own the bus. He's probably renting it.
Apparently...
Didn't he say something left field about... He had a comment, I think, recently about... I don't know if it was about ICE, but... That sucks.
So most people.
So again, this is apparently. I don't know if this is actual footage. This is what everyone's sharing.
Oh, Ice Cube.
Fire.
Ice on the side of the bus.
And apparently it said Ice Cube or something.
Because they call him Ice.
Yeah. Now I don't know if that's true. However, guys,
Be pretty on brand
you're
for the
downtown Portland, which has this kind of stuff all the time, and the Portland ICE protests are ongoing. So when someone says ICE, who set fire to his bus and why? Why did it just happen? Because somebody did it for a reason. Now we can speculate. Yeah. Maybe it was some guy who was like, I am so jealous of this famous rapper, I will burn it. I don't know. We don't really hear stories like that.
Doesn't sound like
So
it.
when the rumor is anti-ICE protesters set fire to Ice Cube's van or tour bus, we're kind of like, that's kind of believable.
It's believable in my opinion.
Yeah, and Ice Cube might have killed people in the past. Like, he came from a rough neighborhood. I wouldn't want to set his bus on fire personally.
He said,
but maybe it'll bring him over to our cause. So
apparently he said he's not taking it as a personal attack. That it could have been anybody who did it or whatever.
That's good.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that whoever did it's probably, whether motivation was left, it was one of these crackpot Portland protesters. Because it's not the lady who owns the boutique shop in Portland doing it.
No.
And they were probably on drugs.
Portland has been under siege since the pandemic started. Like, they've been in a nonstop protest and anarchy.
Which speaks to my earlier point of they should have been arresting people that assault.
No, they were like, oh, let's just give you privacy.
Give them
let's
space.
Just give you the city. And you'll calm down. And they never calm down.
You should have arrested them all, thrown them all in
Put in
jail.
the streets, lighting fires.
Yeah,
Does ICE mark their vans? Does it say ICE on the ICE vans?
Sometimes some of them will and some of them don't.
Yeah, no, it depends. And I think it doesn't say ICE specifically. Border Patrol does. It's white with a green band. It has Border Patrol on it. The ICE vans, let me see if I can find the photo of these vans that got shot. We do have them. Let me pull this up so you can take a look at it.
Because people are working so hard to figure out where ICE is going to be now. Like in Chicago, Block Club.
They're not unmarked.
No. There's
writing on the front. I'll try and see if I can get a better image of what it says.
Why would they think he would have a tour bus for ICE? Like, what?
Man, these images are all small. You can't read anything. So this is the thing about the shooter at the ICE facility. When the left is like, he was shooting detainees, he didn't know that these vehicles were for detainee transport. He just saw ICE vehicles and started shooting at them.
The reason I asked is because I feel like the path that seems like is happening is that they'll, at some point, ICE will be like, we can't mark our vehicles anymore because we're too easy to target. Then they'll have unmarked vehicles. Then they'll be like, we can't show anybody's face because it's too dangerous. Then they'll all have stormtrooper armor on. Yeah. And they'll be like, now we all have digital ID. They want, like, which they just, Keir Starmer in England yesterday was like, we're all going to have digital ID now because the problem they created of the mass immigration, now they're going to try and fix the problem they created with even more problems.
It's called problem reaction solution.
Yeah, it's textbook totalitarian governance.
Textbook Alex Jones, circa.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you for ringing the alarm.
The most popular name in London, Muhammad, like the biggest name for babies. Yeah.
Or for boys.
Yeah.
I'd rather not go down this path, but at the same time, it feels like the empire,
That fell. Well, London.
Yeah.
London has fallen.
As of 2023, Muhammad has officially taken the top spot in England as the most popular baby. So not even just London, England.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really bad.
Overtook Noah.
Yeah. No, their whole culture has shifted. It happened.
In the United States, you can't even blame Joe. I mean, you can kind of blame Joe Biden when he said surge the border, negligent, near dementia, but it was almost this emergent apathy that...
Bro, the stuff we are learning about James Comey, that we've learned about him, and not even just him, but Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. Actually, and we'll talk about it in a second, with the new information about what happened on J6. I mean, it's pretty patently obvious that we had a rogue anti-American faction in control of our institutions and our government for this period or for longer.
I think it began at 9/11. I mean, I watched the entire country change after 9/11 with the Patriot Act and the way people were like, whatever you want, government, you're in control now.
Take the wheel.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Ooh, I remember September of 2001. how normal it was, and then all of a sudden
what?
All of a sudden, it mattered more what George Bush said than anybody else.
There was a significant terror attack on 9/11. What is it that you think? Like, so going into aside from going to Iraq, because Iraq was a terrible botched idea. What is it aside from that you think was the major change where a nefarious organization that didn't love America took over? Is that because that's kind of what Tim was saying?
That was like a mask off moment. I mean, it's been at it since the 1930 business plot when they tried to march 400,000 men on Washington, D.C. to overthrow the government.
Let's pause, because the creation of the liberal economic order after World War II was a substantially different set of circumstances from the business plot.
Yeah.
And
I believe the liberal economic order was the principal turning point for this country, in which we had the birth of the Uniparty. And you get it. I mean, the International Monetary Fund, the Bank for International Settlements, all of these things that were created in the wake of the U.S. and its European allies being like, it's time for us to own the world. That is when in 2016, Trump got in and was like, no. And then they were like, we can't let him dismantle this.
Yeah, they did with the Federal Reserve. That was like the fascists' foot in the door. Then the business plot was their blatant attempt at the fascist coup. And that got Smedley Butler blew it up. And they're like, no.
Fascist is not the right way to describe it.
Well, they said it's going to be a fascist coup. Smedley, can you lead a fascist coup on the government? We want to overthrow
They
it here.
literally verbatim said
it was either
fascism.
communism or fascism. That was what people were thinking at that point in history. And they're like, we want to do a fascist
I think
government.
when this big uptick in not-for-profits took over America, like not-for-profit business is such a major jobs category in America. And I feel like that's driving a lot of how Congress is behaving, because a lot of the money gets funneled sometimes from those not-for-profits into their campaigns. Like, these people are not raising the amount of money that you think they're raising for their campaigns. They're getting it via these alternative routes. And you have so much money that's going into not-for-profit donations, and then it's just, they don't have to disclose things the way that you would think they have to disclose it. And I think that that's really caused a lot of the corruption. Even in states like Illinois, Pritzker has a not-for-profit that he exclusively uses to lobby and to influence elections. So he can go into other states and influence their elections with his not-for-profit. And that's how he's been swaying people's elections, is via that.
Ian, you're correct. Explicitly and overtly fascist was the business plot.
It was bankers, and their names are public.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
the media just was like, we'll just not mention this. I mean, the business plot is the most fascist.
I mean, look, looking at historical things from like with modern eyes is one thing, but like prior to Mussolini and prior to the Nazis' specific unique version of fascism wasn't looked at in the same way that we look at it today. Right, like it
wasn't inherently evil. It was
so it's the way, and I feel like the way that we're talking about it here, or at least the way that you're talking about it, it only sees it from a modern perspective.
I do think the word fascist has been used like a cudgel lately. But
Absolutely.
we're all in a partly fascist system, like 13% fascist.
Well, I mean, look, so like in Chile, right? Chile was a fascist. Pinochet was a fascist dictator, and he was fairly brutal. But like at the end of his reign, like he left power. I think he died. But like they didn't continue on. There wasn't another dictator after that, if I remember correctly. And I'm not super well versed on it, but they had like you can have a fascist government that goes away. You can vote a fascist. There are even fascist governments that are voted out. So like the idea that the way that people think of fascism today implies Nazism. Right, it's almost like it's synonymous for Nazism, and it's not.
And racism.
Nazism, pardon me.
And racism.
Well,
they lump it all in together.
Yeah, that's true. But fascism frequently did have racist connections because they were very very nationalistic and ethnicity mattered and stuff like that. But I just want to point out, like, or I at least want to shed light on, when you say fascist, people think Nazi nowadays, right? Even though Nazis were a very specific and a unique form of fascism. They aren't, it is not the same as other fascist governments.
Right.
So,
Mussolini particularly was hardcore, like state-owned, control everything kind of thing, which people think that's what fascism is. But it's just like when Trump used government funds to buy 10% of Intel, that was a fascist move.
no, that wasn't fascist.
Yeah, it was buying part of a corporation.
Well, because the corporation still has like their own agenda.
Well,
like one of the things,
90% of it.
yeah, 90% of it. So that's like that's not fascism. Like if you're if you listen, because in a fascist government, the government would go and say, these are the things that the government wants, and you can stay in business and you can make profit. And you can keep your property, but you need to work towards the ends that the government wants. So if you have 90% of your business that's working to do whatever you want and make profit for your shareholders, and only 10% of the government is owned by the government, that's not the government controlling what you do.
Well, there's a small part of that is being controlled, but
that's not fascist. Ian,
fascist or not fascist. It's not one or zero.
Ian, the point is, in a fascist government, they demand that companies do what the government wants them to do, work towards the same end that the government has. Mm-hmm. If the companies have the freedom to do other things, to do whatever they want with 90% of their resources, and only a portion of it goes to what the government the ends the government wants, that's not fascism.
Pointing out that
it's just the government having a stake in the company.
But it's not that a government is or isn't fascist. Governments can have fascist aspects, and some of those are.
Okay, hold on.
Wait.
Okay, hold on. Ian, what does fascism mean?
The way I think of it is corporate government collusion.
Like communism, you mean?
Similar, but they use money to soft influence. They don't actually own the stuff.
Even the fact
you
that
could
you
argue that
think
it's
of it,
communist to buy 10% of Intel, but it's more of like soft influence behind the paywall, basically.
What is that? What do you mean?
It's not overt ownership. It's like control of corporations through media manipulation. Fascism.
So what you're saying, what Trump is doing is communist, because they're
you could argue it is more communist than fascist, but it would technically be both. I mean, but the fascism is a little
what's
bit
the
more
distinction between the two?
What's that?
What's the distinction between the two?
That in a communist state, the government would own the means of production, would own the companies.
Okay,
but owning 10% of a company is a little different.
So fascism is when you own some of it. Communism is when you own all of it.
Communism definitely when you own all of it. You might be able to make the argument that fascism is a road to communism. I mean, if they start to, it's just he put it on.
I don't think you know what either of these words mean.
Well, I know that communism is state-controlled business.
State owns the means of production.
So socialism is the economic structure of what you're referring to. Communism is the political philosophy that encompasses the economic structures.
Right, we all own everything together.
Has a few different definitions, but it's largely a reference to authoritarian traditionalism. Communism is authoritarian progressivism because totalitarian systems can take many different forms. The communist philosophy largely was based on we are all equal, the blank slate. The fascist ideology was largely based on the strong must survive and there is no truth but power. So that's the difference. How your economy functions isn't necessarily a component of either of these ideologies.
No, I kind of agree with that, yeah. But the Federal Reserve is a fascist function by giving the private company control of our monetary supply.
One argument was that fascism was the lucrative merger of corporation and state. The only problem is that's just an economic system that could exist in any country, even if it's not totalitarian, if it has a strong culture. So that's why I've never been a big fan of that definition as the whole of fascism. Mm-hmm. What you find with the Italians and the Nazis when people tend to describe fascism is that they were very much traditionalist, nationalist, authoritarian. When you look at the communists, they were progressive, globalist, authoritarian. So one could make the argument, Hitler wanted to rule the world. Sure, the ideology for the Nazis is not necessarily fascism, as Phil was pointing out. The general idea was ultranationalism. And the communists were like, we will control everything, and everyone will be equal under the blank slate. And
labor is everything.
Yeah, and men and women are it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter, very much anarcho-tyranny-like. Fascism was very much rigid, authoritarian, hierarchy. And, a simple way to describe both of these ideologies, I suppose, especially when you look at the turn of the century. Now, I think the problem we have in this country is all people can do is cite someone else. Yeah. Instead of, make up a new word. But we don't have that kind of academia. And largely, these ideas took decades to cement themselves in the psyche of the public. So can we call what we're seeing today from the U.S. government communism or fascism? I mean, technically, because there's similarities, but it's so different. So people say gay race communism because they're trying to add qualifiers to justify what it is, even though it's somewhat different. I think the reality is No one has just written the academic paper with a new phrase describing it. People have tried to claim it's called Trumpism. Right. And what is that?
Technocracy, but
It's not.
It could be a neutral good thing. You know, it doesn't have to be evil. Like fascism, I think, is evil by nature.
Why?
But it creates order. Because it usually strips rights away from the common man and gives it to the central authority.
But what if everyone in a country likes that and they vote for it?
They've given it away. A lot
You
of
get
times.
Mussolini. Oh,
Look, most
All right, so honest question.
interrupt you,
No,
Christine.
you're fine.
Question for you, Ian. Is communism evil?
It's like a political philosophy, but it tends towards suffering. So yeah, I think
You
so.
said fascism was evil, right?
Yeah, I think it tends towards suffering.
And so communism is evil too?
Yeah, that's safe to say.
If there is
generally.
if there's a nation of 500,000 people and they vote for communism, they go communist, and then they all celebrate and cheer, and they're had never been happier, should we shut down their evil system or just let them do what they want?
Well,
Interesting.
I guess it's like do no harm, you know. But if they start infringing on your rights, you have to do
On
something
whose rights?
on your rights.
I'm saying there's a country, you don't live in it.
They start spying on you.
They've got 500,000 citizens. They vote for communism. They never leave. They're happy. They don't go to war with anybody. They grow their own food. They mind their own business, and they have a 100% happiness rate among the population.
That would be really good.
So is that evil?
I mean, I think communism is evil because it strips rights away from the individual.
Even if the people vote for it and they're happy for it,
Yeah, people can vote for evil and be happy.
and they're not affecting anybody or aggressing on anybody else, and they're all living in their communist utopia.
But when you centralize authority, those people tend to go nuts.
That's not my question.
Okay.
I'm
if,
asking
if
you-
your hypothetical system functioned, you'd have like Bhutan.
The point I'm making is that what is evil about communism is that they
don't
force
want
you into it with a gun to your head. If there was a fascist system where people were like, we want to build our own community just for people like us, where we're going to have these rules and you don't get to vote, and they all say, we would like to enter into that system, and they don't aggress against anybody, they've consented to it, they live there, they're happy, there's no human rights abuses, it's just the government is in control and tells people what they can and can't do, and they say, we're happy with that.
It could work.
So is it evil? The issue is not how people choose to live when they choose to live that way. The issue is that fascists took it by force and abused people who didn't fit in. And the communists largely do the same thing, take it by force. And in both of these systems, through the force, they enrich themselves at the top.
In the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, it was done not through force. It was done through legislation. The fascists took the power.
Well, I think even if we're thinking about real-time examples of not communism or fascism, but if we're looking at even like what's happening in Illinois, where the rhetoric, the story is just being changed. What I see often when I'm talking to people who live in Illinois who are still voting for Pritzker or things like that, they don't know the truth. They actually don't really know it because they're still citing sources like the Washington Post. You know, they're reading what they believe is reputable sources. And I think that when you start to change narratives and people can't make an educated decision, like he said, they're not choosing Pritzker from an educated place. They're choosing Pritzker based on a narrative that's been implanted in them, and they feel confident in that narrative, but that narrative is not the truth. And I think that when manipulation is implanted, that is when you have evil or inherent evil, like you said.
The NPC meme. That really describes these people. And you know what? If the NPCs all want to go live in Venezuela in their socialist utopia, then I got no problem with that.
Go do it.
Ian, I just in Slack, I just sent you a book about fascism. You should take a look at it.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.